Welcome to your journey into the world of boldness. Today, we're diving into the insights of Ranjay Gulati's transformative book, How to Be Bold. Now, you might be wondering, what does it mean to be bold? Is it about being loud, aggressive, or dismissive of others? Not at all. Gulati presents boldness as a carefully cultivated skill that combines courage, clarity, and action, the ability to step forward even when uncertainty clouds the path ahead. Think of boldness like a muscle. It grows stronger with use, but it needs the right conditions to flourish. Just as a plant needs sunlight, water, and good soil, boldness thrives in environments that challenge us, support us, and reward our willingness to take thoughtful risks. In our fast-paced world, where change is the only constant, the capacity to be bold isn't just a nice-to-have trait, it's essential. Whether you're leading a team, launching a new idea, or navigating personal challenges, boldness gives you the edge you need to not just survive, but truly thrive. So what exactly is boldness, and why does it matter? Gulati begins by demystifying this often misunderstood concept. Boldness isn't reckless behavior or ignoring potential consequences. Rather, it's the disciplined pursuit of what matters most, even when fear tries to hold you back. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a diving board. The water below looks inviting, but there's that moment of hesitation, that flutter of nerves. Boldness isn't diving headfirst without thinking about safety. It's recognizing the height, assessing the water, taking a deep breath, and choosing to take the plunge because the joy of the dive outweighs the discomfort of the moment of fear. Gulati emphasizes that boldness sits at the intersection of three critical elements: having a clear purpose, maintaining unwavering confidence, and taking decisive action. None of these can exist in isolation. You might have a clear purpose and confidence, but without action, boldness remains dormant. Conversely, you could take action with confidence, but without purpose, you might find yourself building something that doesn't truly matter. The author also distinguishes between raw courage and disciplined boldness. Raw courage is that moment of panic-fueled action. Think jumping into a burning building to save someone. Disciplined boldness, however, is more sustainable and strategic. It's the business leader who decides to pivot a company despite the risks, the parent who chooses to have a difficult conversation with their teenager, or the individual who decides to change careers at 40. This disciplined approach requires what Gulati calls calculated risk-taking. You gather information, weigh options, consider consequences, and then make a decision based on your best judgment. It's not gambling, it's informed, purposeful action. Gulati structures his approach around four foundational pillars that support bold behavior. Let's explore each one. Pillar 1. Purpose-driven vision. The first pillar is having a purpose-driven vision. This isn't just about setting goals. It's about understanding why those goals matter. Bold actions without purpose are like arrows shot into the darkness. They might land somewhere, but you can't be sure they'll hit the target. Gulati shares the story of a nonprofit leader who was considering merging with another organization. The financial benefits were clear, but the purpose-driven leader took time to consider the impact on their mission. Would this merger actually help more people? Would it preserve the values that made their work meaningful? The decision to proceed with the merger came from a deep understanding of their purpose, not just financial pressure. When your vision is purpose-driven, boldness becomes almost inevitable. You're not just acting for personal gain or ego, you're serving something larger than yourself. This creates a kind of moral courage that helps push through obstacles. The mission provides the energy needed to overcome fear. Think about bold individuals you admire. Maybe a social entrepreneur, a scientist who challenged conventional thinking, or a leader who transformed an industry. What do they all have in common? They weren't just taking risks for the sake of being daring. They were deeply connected to a purpose. that gave their bold actions meaning and persistence. Pillar 2. Confidence in competence. The second pillar is confidence, not the flashy, overconfident kind you sometimes see in movies, but a deep, quiet confidence in your competence. This isn't about knowing everything. It's about trusting your ability to learn, adapt, and figure things out as you go. Gulati talks about the competence-confidence loop. The more you develop skills and successfully navigate challenges, the more confident you become, which makes you more likely to take on bigger challenges, which further develops your skills and confidence. It's a virtuous cycle that builds over time. He uses the metaphor of a seasoned sailor. A novice might panic when the wind picks up, but an experienced sailor knows their boat, understands the water, and has weathered storms before. They approach challenging conditions with calm confidence because they've developed their competence through experience and practice. Building this kind of confidence requires intentional effort. It means investing in your skills, seeking feedback, learning from failures, and celebrating small wins along the way. It's not about being perfect. It's about being competent enough to handle uncertainty. Notice how this differs from blind confidence or overconfidence. Someone who's overconfident might charge ahead without proper preparation, leading to disaster. Competence confidence, on the other hand, is based on real experience and an accurate assessment of your abilities combined with a growth mindset. Pillar 3. Decisive action. The third pillar is taking decisive action. Boldness isn't just about thinking big or dreaming big. It's about implementing those big ideas. And that requires the willingness to make decisions and move forward, even when information is incomplete. Gulati introduces the concept of good enough decision-making. In a world of infinite information and analysis, the goal isn't to make perfect decisions. It's to make sufficiently informed decisions and then commit fully to them. Think about launching a new product. You could spend years perfecting every feature, but by the time you're ready, the market might have moved on. Bold leaders know when they have enough information to proceed. They launch, learn, and iterate. This doesn't mean being reckless or making decisions carelessly. It means understanding that perfectionism can be the enemy of progress. Bold individuals set a threshold for good enough and then act decisively. Gulati shares a story about a CEO who had to decide whether to acquire a smaller company. The due diligence was thorough, but inevitably some questions remained unanswered. Instead of requesting more time for analysis, the CEO made the decision based on what they had learned and their assessment of the company's trajectory. Sometimes the best decision is to act on 80% of the information and trust your judgment for the remaining 20%. The key is committing fully once the decision is made. Half-hearted implementation undermines the boldness of the original decision. When you commit, you bring your full energy and focus to making the decision work. Pillar 4. Resilient persistence. The final pillar is resilient persistence. Boldness isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. The path of bold action is rarely smooth, and resilience becomes your anchor when storms arise. Gulati describes bold individuals as resilient optimists. They're not naively positive about everything. They acknowledge challenges and setbacks, but maintain belief in their ability to navigate them. They see obstacles as temporary detours rather than permanent roadblocks. The author uses the metaphor of a mountain climber. Reaching the summit requires not just the courage to begin the ascent, but the persistence to keep going when the path gets steep, the weather turns harsh, or progress feels painfully slow. Boldness without persistence is like starting a marathon but quitting at mile 5 because your legs are tired. Gulati emphasizes that persistence isn't about stubbornness. It's about smart adaptation. Resilient individuals learn from setbacks, adjust their approach when necessary, but maintain their commitment to the larger purpose. They distinguish between failing at a method and failing at a mission, allowing them to pivot on tactics while staying true to their goals. This pillar also involves what Gulati calls stress inoculation, gradually exposing yourself to increasingly challenging situations in a controlled way. Like a vaccine prepares your immune system to fight disease, facing manageable challenges prepares you to handle bigger ones with confidence and grace.
Even when we understand the pillars of boldness, we often find ourselves hesitating. Gulati identifies several common barriers that keep us from acting boldly, along with strategies for overcoming them. Barrier 1. The fear of failure. The most common barrier is the fear of failure. We all have an innate aversion to losing face, making mistakes, or not meeting expectations. But Gulati argues that our relationship with failure needs to change. He introduces the concept of productive failure, recognizing that some failures are essential stepping stones to success. Think of a child learning to walk. They fall down countless times, but each fall teaches them something about balance, weight distribution, and coordination. If they never fell, they would never learn to walk properly. Gulati shares research showing that many successful entrepreneurs have experienced multiple failures before achieving success. But what sets them apart isn't that they failed less, they learned to extract value from their failures. They asked questions like, "What did I learn? How can I apply this knowledge? What would I do differently next time?" The key is reframing failure. Instead of seeing it as a verdict on your competence, view it as data about your approach. This shift in perspective reduces the emotional charge of failure and makes you more willing to take calculated risks. He also emphasizes the importance of creating psychological safety in environments where boldness is encouraged. This means establishing cultures where mistakes are treated as learning opportunities rather than reasons for punishment or shame. When people feel safe to fail small, they're more likely to attempt bold moves that could lead to significant success. Barrier 2. Analysis paralysis. Another major barrier is what Gulati calls analysis paralysis, the tendency to overthink and overanalyze, leading to delayed or avoided action. In our information-rich world, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeking more data before making a decision. But as Gulati points out, perfect information is often impossible to obtain, and waiting for it can mean missing opportunities or allowing competitors to move ahead. He introduces the 80-20 rule for decision-making. If you have 80% of the information you think you need, and the cost of waiting for the remaining 20% exceeds the potential benefit, it's time to act on what you have. Gulati also discusses the concept of pre-mortems, imagining a decision has already been made and then figuring out everything that could go wrong. This exercise helps identify potential problems before they occur, but it shouldn't paralyze action. Instead, it should inform contingency planning. The key is distinguishing between paralysis thinking and preparation thinking. Preparation involves gathering necessary information, considering alternatives, and planning for potential challenges. Paralysis involves endless rumination without forward movement. Barrier 3. Social pressure and approval seeking. A third barrier is social pressure, the desire to be liked and approved by others, which can discourage bold action that might be controversial or misunderstood. Gulati discusses how social validation can become a prison. We might have a bold idea or vision, but we water it down or delay acting on it because we're worried about what others will think. This is especially true in hierarchical organizations or cultures that value conformity. The solution isn't becoming oblivious to others' opinions, but rather understanding which opinions matter. Bold individuals learn to distinguish between feedback that can improve their ideas and feedback that merely reflects others' comfort zones or biases. Gulati suggests developing what he calls a personal board of advisors, a small group of trusted individuals whose opinions you value and who can provide honest, constructive feedback on your bold ideas. This helps you avoid being swayed by uninformed or self-interested opinions, while still benefiting from valuable insights. He also emphasizes the importance of aligning with like-minded collaborators. Boldness is often a team sport. Having others who share your vision and are willing to take risks with you can provide support and momentum when social pressure mounts. Barrier 4. Comfort zone entanglement. The final barrier Gulati identifies is what he calls comfort zone entanglement, our tendency to stay in familiar patterns and environments even when they no longer serve our growth or purpose. Human beings are creatures of habit. Our brains are wired to prefer known patterns because they require less energy and feel safer. But staying in our comfort zones comes at a cost. We stop growing, innovating, and reaching our potential. Gulati suggests a stretch zone approach rather than jumping straight from comfort zone to panic zone. The stretch zone is that sweet spot where you're challenged but not overwhelmed. It's where growth happens. He uses the metaphor of a rubber band. If you never stretch a rubber band, it becomes brittle and weak. If you stretch it too far or too quickly, it breaks. But if you gradually increase the stretch, it becomes stronger and more resilient. For bold action, this means starting with manageable challenges and gradually increasing the difficulty. It could be speaking up in meetings if you're typically quiet, taking on a new responsibility at work, or initiating a difficult conversation with a family member. Each small, bold act builds the capacity for bigger ones.
Understanding the theory of boldness is only the beginning. Gulati emphasizes that boldness, like any skill, requires consistent practice. In this section, he provides practical strategies for developing and strengthening your boldness over time. Practice 1. The First-Time Challenge. Gulati recommends creating regular first-time challenges for yourself. The idea is to deliberately do something new and slightly uncomfortable on a regular basis. These don't have to be dramatic life changes. They could be small actions like trying a new food, taking a different route to work, speaking to a stranger, or trying a new hobby. The goal is to build comfort with discomfort and uncertainty. He suggests starting with low-stakes challenges and gradually working up to more significant ones. The process builds what psychologists call tolerance for ambiguity, your ability to function effectively when the outcome is uncertain. Gulati shares the story of an executive who made it a practice to try one new thing each month, whether it was learning a new software program, visiting a different cultural venue, or taking a class outside their expertise. Over time, this practice increased their comfort with uncertainty and made them more willing to take professional risks, eventually leading to a career transition that significantly expanded their impact and satisfaction. Practice 2. The Boldness Journal. Another practice Gulati recommends is keeping a boldness journal, a record of your bold actions, decisions, and their outcomes. This journal serves several purposes. First, it creates accountability to yourself. When you know you're going to record your actions, you're more likely to act boldly. Second, it provides data for reflection. You can look back and see patterns, what works for you, and areas for improvement. Third, it serves as inspiration when you need motivation. Reading about past bold actions can remind you of your capabilities and encourage future boldness. The journal doesn't need to be long or elaborate. It could be as simple as noting one bold action each day and briefly reflecting on its outcome. Over time, this practice helps you see boldness as a learnable skill rather than an innate trait. Gulati also suggests including near misses, situations where you considered acting boldly but didn't, along with speculation about what might have happened if you had. This reflection can help identify patterns in your hesitation and inform future bold decisions. Practice 4. Building a bold network. Gulati emphasizes that boldness is often cultivated within communities. Surrounding yourself with bold individuals creates an environment where boldness becomes normal and expected. He suggests identifying boldness multipliers in your life, people who encourage you to take risks, challenge you to think bigger, and support your efforts to grow. These could be mentors, peers, or even younger individuals who haven't yet learned to limit their ambitions. Conversely, he warns about boldness drainers, people who consistently discourage risk-taking, emphasize safety over growth, or respond to bold ideas with skepticism or criticism. While healthy skepticism has value, consistently surrounding yourself with people who prioritize safety over growth can undermine your boldness development. Gulati also discusses the importance of boldness sponsorship, finding people who will advocate for your bold ideas and initiatives when you're not in the room. These sponsors can help create opportunities and provide support when you need to act boldly.
While individual boldness is important, Gulati also explores how boldness manifests in leadership and organizational contexts. He argues that the future belongs to leaders and organizations that can act boldly in response to changing circumstances. Characteristics of bold leaders. Gulati identifies several key characteristics of bold leaders. First, they have what he calls perspective courage, the ability to see beyond immediate concerns to longer-term possibilities and challenges. They're willing to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. Second, bold leaders demonstrate clarity under complexity. In our rapidly changing world, situations are often ambiguous and complex. Bold leaders don't wait for perfect clarity. Instead, they work to understand the essential elements of a situation and act based on that understanding. Third, bold leaders practice purposeful disruption. They don't disrupt for the sake of being disruptive, but they aren't afraid to challenge established ways of thinking or operating when those ways no longer serve their purpose or mission. Gulati uses the example of a healthcare leader who recognized that patient care could be improved by fundamentally changing how medical professionals interacted with technology. This required disrupting established workflows and training processes, but the leader's commitment to better patient outcomes provided the justification for the bold changes. Creating bold organizations. Gulati also discusses how organizations can create cultures that support and encourage boldness. This involves both structural elements and cultural norms. Structurally, bold organizations often have what Gulati calls decision velocity, processes that allow for quick decision-making even in complex situations. This might involve clearer decision rights, streamlined approval processes, or empowering frontline employees to make decisions within defined parameters. Culturally, bold organizations often have what he terms psychological safety plus accountability. This means creating an environment where people feel safe to take risks and make mistakes, while also maintaining high standards for performance and learning from both successes and failures. Gulati also emphasizes the importance of boldness incentives, rewarding and recognizing bold actions, not just successful outcomes. If organizations only reward success, people become risk-averse. By acknowledging and celebrating thoughtful, bold attempts, even when they don't succeed, organizations encourage continued boldness. Navigating bold transitions. Many bold leaders face the challenge of navigating transitions, moving from one role, organization, or industry to another. Gulati explores how to approach these transitions boldly. He discusses the concept of strategic abandonment, the willingness to let go of successful but no longer relevant approaches, products, or practices. Bold leaders recognize that yesterday's solutions may be tomorrow's problems, and they're willing to pivot when circumstances change. Gulati also talks about bold integration during transitions, successfully combining elements from different experiences, cultures, or approaches to create something new and better. This requires both confidence in your own abilities and openness to learning from new environments.
The key is approaching transitions as opportunities for bold reinvention, rather than just changes in circumstance. Bold individuals see transitions as chances to align more closely with their purpose, develop new capabilities, and expand their impact. As we move forward in an increasingly complex and rapidly changing world, Galati explores how the nature of boldness itself might evolve. He argues that future boldness will require new skills and approaches. Boldness in the digital age. Galati discusses how digital transformation changes the landscape of boldness. In a world where change happens at unprecedented speed, the ability to act boldly with incomplete information becomes even more critical. He introduces the concept of digital boldness, the ability to leverage technology and data to support bold decision-making while also recognizing technology's limitations. This involves being comfortable with data-driven decision-making while also understanding when human judgment and intuition are essential. Galati also emphasizes the importance of boldness at scale. Digital tools can amplify both positive and negative bold actions, making responsible boldness more important than ever. Bold leaders must consider not just the immediate impact of their decisions, but also their broader implications in an interconnected world. Collaborative boldness. Galati explores how boldness is increasingly becoming a collaborative endeavor. Complex challenges often require bold solutions that no individual or organization can achieve alone. He discusses ecosystem boldness, the ability to build and lead coalitions of diverse stakeholders around bold visions. This requires not just individual boldness, but the ability to inspire and coordinate boldness in others. He also talks about global boldness, the need to approach challenges and opportunities with a global perspective. In an interconnected world, bold decisions in one context can have far-reaching consequences, requiring bold leaders to consider broader impacts and collaborate across cultural and geographical boundaries. Sustainable boldness. Finally, Galati addresses the need for sustainable boldness, approaches to boldness that consider long-term consequences and sustainability. This involves balancing bold action with thoughtful consideration of environmental, social, and economic impacts. He argues that future bold leaders must integrate purpose, profit, and sustainability in their decision-making. Boldness that creates short-term gains at the expense of long-term sustainability isn't truly bold, it's myopic. This sustainable approach to boldness requires what Galati calls systems thinking, the ability to understand how individual bold actions fit into larger systems and how those systems might evolve over time. It's about making bold decisions that create positive ripple effects across multiple dimensions and time frames. Conclusion: your bold journey. As we wrap up our exploration of how to be bold, it's important to remember that boldness is not a destination. It's an ongoing journey. Galati emphasizes that developing boldness is a lifelong practice that evolves as you grow and as circumstances change. The core message is that boldness is a learnable skill, not an innate trait. You can develop your capacity to act boldly by understanding its components, recognizing and overcoming barriers, and consistently practicing bold behaviors in both small and large ways. Remember the 4 pillars: purpose-driven vision, confidence in competence, decisive action, and resilient persistence. When these elements work together, they create a foundation for boldness that can support you through challenges and opportunities. Galati also reminds us that boldness without purpose is just reckless behavior, and boldness without compassion can cause harm. True boldness integrates courage with wisdom, action with reflection, and individual initiative with collective benefit. As you move forward in your own life, consider what boldness might look like for you. It might involve taking a professional risk, having a difficult conversation, starting a new project, or simply speaking up more often when you have valuable insights to share. The most important thing is to start somewhere. Boldness grows through use, like a muscle that gets stronger with exercise. Each small act of boldness builds capacity for larger ones, and each challenge overcome increases confidence in your ability to handle future uncertainties. The world needs your boldness, your unique perspective, your creativity, your willingness to act on behalf of what matters most to you. Don't let fear or self-doubt hold you back from contributing your full potential. Trust in your competence, connect with your purpose, and take action with confidence. Remember, the most regretful words are often, "I wish I had," rather than "I tried and failed." Boldness isn't about avoiding failure. It's about failing forward, learning continuously, and persisting in pursuit of what matters most. Your bold journey starts with your very next choice. What will you choose to do boldly today?